India's cities are dotted with them, modern, gleaming hospitals, promising the best in healthcare. We imagine sleek machines, sophisticated doctors, all working tirelessly to heal. But behind this facade of modernity, a darker truth festers. This is the story of corruption that infects India's corporate hospitals, a tale of greed that preys on the vulnerable and puts profits before patients. We trust hospitals, especially in our moments of greatest vulnerability. We believe doctors will heal, not exploit. But what happens when this trust is shattered? When the very people meant to care for us become complicit in a system that puts profit before our well-being? This is the reality for countless Indians, lured by the promise of world-class treatment, only to find themselves trapped in a web of deceit. This is the story of how corporate greed, fueled by a lack of accountability, has corrupted India's healthcare system. It is a story that needs to be told, and more importantly, it is a story that needs to change. At the heart of this corrupt system lies the referral racket. Doctors, both in private clinics and government hospitals, are often incentivized to refer patients to specific corporate hospitals. And honestly, this isn't about quality of care, it's about commissions. The rates vary, higher in bustling metros like Mumbai or Delhi, and slightly lower in smaller cities. But the principle remains the same. A doctor's referral is a transaction, the patient a commodity. A specialist recommending a particular hospital for a second opinion, a general practitioner pushing for unnecessary hospitalization. These are telltale signs. Imagine a young couple from a village seeking treatment for their child's heart condition. They approach a doctor in their town, their hearts heavy with hope and fear. The doctor, instead of recommending the best course of action, sees an opportunity for profit. He directs them to a corporate hospital in the city, a hospital known for inflating bills and conducting unnecessary procedures. A hospital that rewards him handsomely for each patient he delivers. This, unfortunately, is not a hypothetical scenario. This is the reality of India's referral system, a system where a doctor's oath is often overshadowed by the promise of financial gain. Once in the city, vulnerable patients, especially those from rural areas, are often met by another cog in this corrupt machine agents. These individuals, often untrained and unscrupulous, linger outside hospitals, railway stations and bus stands, preying on the anxieties of patients and their families. They promise discounted treatments, easier access to doctors, even guaranteed cures. And lured by these false promises, many unsuspecting patients fall into their trap. These agents act as middlemen, funneling patients towards hospitals willing to pay a finder's fee. Consider the story of Lakshmi, a farmer's wife who traveled to Chennai for her husband's cancer treatment. An agent approached her, promising a bed in a renowned cancer hospital. He painted a rosy picture of affordable treatment and expert care. Lakshmi, desperate and unfamiliar with the city, trusted him. Little did she know, she was being led to a hospital notorious for overcharging and unnecessary procedures. A hospital that would drain her life savings and leave her husband sicker than before. This brings us to the most insidious part of this corrupt system. The blatant overuse of medical procedures and tests. Once admitted, patients are often subjected to a battery of unnecessary investigations, all in the name of profit. From unnecessary blood tests and scans to unwarranted surgeries, every procedure adds to the burgeoning bill. The patient, already overwhelmed and vulnerable, becomes a source of revenue, their health taking a backseat to the hospital's bottom line. A study by the National Pharmaceutical Pricing Authority found that private hospitals in India were marking up the prices of essential medicines and medical devices by as much as 1,700%. These exorbitant markups, coupled with the unnecessary procedures, create a system where healthcare becomes a luxury few can afford. Broken trust, broken lives, patients caught in the crossfire. The consequences of this rampant corruption are honestly just devastating. Patients, already battling illness, are now burdened with crippling debt. Families are forced to sell their assets, take on high-interest loans, and, compromise on their futures. All just to afford healthcare that should really be a right, not a privilege. But it's not just about money. There's also the emotional toll, the erosion of trust, the feeling of betrayal when you realize that the very system meant to heal you is actually exploiting your vulnerability. It leaves scars that go deeper than any scalpel. Take the case of Ramesh, a retired schoolteacher from Kerala. He had to sell his ancestral land to pay for his wife's treatment, and that too for a relatively minor ailment. The hospital, through a series of unnecessary tests and prolonged hospitalization, inflated the bill tenfold. Ramesh and his wife returned home, yes, cured of the illness, but now burdened by debt. Their golden years, instead of being peaceful, are now overshadowed by financial insecurity. This is the human cost of corruption in healthcare. Shattered lives, broken dreams, and a deep-seated mistrust in a system that should have been a beacon of hope. Silence and impunity. That's what allows this system to thrive. This exploitative setup feeds on the silence of patients. Most people, unaware of their rights or just too scared to speak up, end up suffering quietly. The fear of jeopardizing their treatment stops them from questioning doctors or challenging those sky-high bills. And then there's the lack of transparency in healthcare costs. Without standardized rates for procedures and treatments, hospitals can, well, pretty much set whatever prices they want. Patients are left confused, with no point of reference, and totally vulnerable to being overcharged. On top of that, the regulatory mechanisms that are supposed to monitor and control these practices, they're often weak and honestly not doing enough. The lack of strict enforcement just emboldens these hospitals, letting them operate with impunity, their greed unchecked. But hey, there is hope. We, the patients, do have the power to fight back. Awareness is, without a doubt, our most potent weapon. We need to stay informed about our rights, question unnecessary tests and procedures, and demand transparency in billing. Don't hesitate to seek a second opinion, ideally from a doctor who isn't tied to the hospital. Ask for detailed explanations of all tests and treatments, and if something feels off, don't be afraid to refuse it. Remember, you have the right to say no and to get another opinion. There are several NGOs and patient advocacy groups out there, working tirelessly to expose these corrupt practices and empower people like you and me. Use these resources, connect with them, and stay informed. Knowledge is your shield. Use it to protect yourself and your loved ones. The fight against corruption in healthcare isn't just about pointing fingers. It's about reclaiming a system that should be rooted in healing, not exploitation. It's about making sure that every single citizen, no matter their background or income, has access to quality, affordable healthcare. And to get there, we need a multi-pronged approach: stricter regulations, proper enforcement, and way more transparency in healthcare costs. We've got to empower patients with knowledge and give them a safe space to voice their grievances without fear. But above all, we need a shift in attitude, a collective realization that healthcare is a right, not a privilege. It's time, really, to reclaim our healthcare system from the clutches of greed and corruption. It's time for a healthier, fairer, and more ethical India.